Are there any questions or anything before we start? Just dial on in. Okay, perfect. Okay, so we covered this last week, right? Perspective taking. We talked about, right, the Mars orbiter that broke up and blew up and lost millions of dollars because people couldn't talk to each other. We learned about Indiana Jones. And then this is where we ended, right, with testing, with practicing these things. So you guys will probably hear me say this like a million times throughout the semester. You'll probably get a little bit annoyed with me saying it, but it's very, very important. So yes, I'm going to keep saying it. Perspective taking really is the foundation of what we do. Okay? If we can't perspective take, a lot of the other stuff that we do doesn't really matter. I mean, do you care if somebody looks nice and acts like they're listening if they don't really care how you feel about something or what you think about something? You're probably not going to care about anything else that they do if you don't get the sense that they really want to know about you and how you're experiencing something. So that's really the crux of what we do. Now, a lot of other stuff that we're going to learn is very important. But if we don't have this foundation, it doesn't really wind up mattering. Okay? So you're gonna hear me say a lot, the most important skill that we do is perspective take. Okay? It doesn't mean that's the only thing we do. That's just the most important thing. We gotta make sure we do that. So we're gonna skip this for now because we have a lot to cover today. We did that. So one of the things we're talking about right now, we're talking about empathy and sympathy. We're going to cover this because these words are used very differently in the field, and I can only imagine you in your master's degree encounter this like all the time. I remember like all the books I was reading, I would have like whiplash because they would use empathy and sympathy differently in like every book. So the important thing is not empathy means this thing and sympathy means this thing. The important thing is that we all mean the same thing by the same words in this class. And I'm going to kind of go with how Egan is using the words. It's not necessarily how Nichols uses the words, because again, these words are used very, very, very differently in the field. And again, I don't think it's important. I am not living and dying on any battlefield for empathy meaning this, sympathy meaning this. I think the thing that's important is recognizing that there's two different things at play and recognizing which one of them is you're experiencing. Okay? Whatever you call it doesn't matter, I don't think. Okay, so empathy, the definition we're going to use for this class is, it's the action of understanding or being aware of the feelings, thoughts, and experiences of others. So you just stubbed your toe. I would guess that would hurt. Maybe it's a little frustrating. Maybe it's a little bit aggravating. Maybe a little annoyed. Right? That's me empathizing. I'm guessing how you feel based on the information that I have about you. It's important to note that with empathy, I don't feel bad. I'm just recognizing how you might feel. And with sympathy, I feel the way you feel. Okay? My best friend just got dumped by her boyfriend and she's crying, inconsolably on the living room couch, and I'm sitting there and I'm really sad to see her so sad, and maybe I start crying a little bit. I don't feel empathy. I do probably have some empathy, right? Recognizing how she feels. I am now feeling sympathy. I now feel how she is feeling. If you've ever studied music, if any of you here are music people, there's something called sympathetic vibrations in music. And if you hit a C on a piano, it'll vibrate the C in like a harp or something like that. If they have the same harmonics, right? One of them will set off the other, right? So it's called sympathetic vibrations. So you can think of that when you think of sympathy. You're feeling what the other person is feeling. Okay? If you can understand how somebody's feeling, but you don't feel that way yourself, that's sympathy. Okay. Now again, just a reminder, people use these words differently a lot. There are definitely books that you will read where when they say empathy, they mean what they're talking about is you feel how that person's feeling. And when they say sympathy, they're saying, oh, I see how you might feel. But they're not, but then you read other books that will. So, like I said, I don't think the important thing is to say, like, absolutely empathy means this. I think it's just to understand that there's two different ways, right? One way you can recognize how somebody's feeling. Another way you can feel how somebody's feeling, okay? What you want to call those is fine. It's just really important to recognize the difference. Because as paraprofessional counselors, we need to be empathetic. We need to recognize how somebody might be feeling. We need to stay away from feeling how they feel. Right? It will happen sometimes. It absolutely will happen. But you just want to recognize it when it happens and maybe talk to a supervisor or a peer consultant about it, because feeling what they feel a lot can, first of all, can lead to you not being professional, right? Because now all of a sudden, like, their emotional problem is your emotional problem. It's not a good place to be, right? And then also it could set you up for burnout really, really well, because, gosh, it's hard to feel the pain of everybody you work with. Like, it's hard. You can't do it. You're going to burn out. So we want to understand how people feel, but we want to recognize when we're actually getting into feeling how they feel, and we want to stop that from happening. Does this difference make sense? Okay. So again, like I said, you will absolutely read things that have different definitions for these. It doesn't matter. Like, I don't think it matters. I'm kind of going with how Egan uses them just for the sake of the class. But the important thing is recognizing that there's two different concepts here. And one of them we want to do, absolutely, and one of them we don't want to do, absolutely, right? Or I should say absolutely. We don't want to do it. You're a human. You're going to do it. Recognize it when you do it. Like, seek consultation and supervision to work through it so it's not happening a lot. Okay? Yeah. Any questions about that? Does that make sense? So when we use these words in this class, we're all going to be meaning the same thing, right? When anybody in this class uses empathy, when anybody in this class says sympathy, we all now have common vernacular. We're all going to mean the same thing. Even if in another class you mean something else by that word. Something that I like to think about a lot is there's an image of a rushing river. So you come up to a rushing river and there's somebody holding on to a tree trunk in the middle of the rushing river. Ah! So empathy tells you that person is probably scared, probably cold, right? Probably really worried about what's going to happen next. They probably need like a life preserver or a rope or something to get them to the shore, right? Your empathy is kicking in. You're able to understand how they feel and what they might need. Sympathy would be you getting into the river and holding onto the tree trunk with them. Now you're feeling it with them. Right? You good? You need help at the door? Sorry. No, you're fine. So sympathy is, right, you're getting into the river with them. How much good are you going to be to them, helping them out when you're in the river holding onto the tree trunk with them? It's not a rhetorical question. Feel free to shout out an answer. How much? Yeah, you're not going to be any good to them at all, right? You can die together, you know.
Emotional support. Die with someone else.
What would you do? You're holding on to a tree trunk, and somebody comes in, like the only person who can save you, now comes into the water and they're now with you. Do you feel emotionally supported, or do you feel like, you idiot, now we're both going to die? Mm-hmm. Yeah, come on, right? I would guess that you probably don't feel emotionally supported. I would guess. I would guess you feel very let down, because the one person who could save you is now just as bad off as you were. They let you down. Right? So we as the helpers, we want to be empathetic. We want to recognize how they might feel. We do not want to feel how they feel. We do not want to get caught up in that. We're not any help to them if we do. Right? We're not. Okay, does that make sense? Those definitions, we're going to use those terms to mean that for the rest of this class. We're all good. Okay. Self-care. Talk about a little bit about self-care. We will talk about self-care a lot. I'm hoping you're talking about self-care a lot in your program too. We'll talk about self-care a lot. I'm a big believer in self-care. I am a big believer that if you want to be excellent in this field, self-care will be a habit that you practice on a regular basis. People who are mediocre in this field, people that are like, yeah, how can I help you? Okay, come back on Tuesday. Those people don't practice self-care. They don't. So if you want to be excellent in this field, you will have self-care be a part of your habits. You will. And you need to start in school. Because if you think you're too busy to start it in school, I promise you, life will only get busier after school. Like that's just how it happens. So start the habit now. Self-care, a couple things. You know that old plane crashing little thing that they go through every time. You know, they probably tune out now and they stand up and they go, here's a mask. If it falls down from the ceiling, put it on you first and then put it on the child, right? What they're telling you is put your mask on first, right? You can't help the child if you've already passed out because you were trying to help the child. Put your mask on, take care of yourself, then you can help out other people, right? The principle for self-care definitely holds, right? If we are not at a place that we can help people, what are we doing working with vulnerable people who we will hurt, right? Okay. Do I have like spinach in my teeth or something? No, you guys are just all happy. I love it. I just am getting people smiling at me a lot. So either I'm being ridiculous or I have spinach in my teeth. I'm not sure which of these it is. But anyway, I love the smiles. It's great. Self-monitoring is very important. Being able to monitor yourself, being able to say, man, today's just one of those days. I'm not in a good place. Or today is the day that I really need some supervision. I need to talk to my supervisor about this. Or, you know, that thing that happened to me last week, I'm not getting over it. I keep fixating on it. I think it might start to affect me because it's always kind of leaving me in a grumpy mood, right? But or whatever. Or maybe I'm super, super happy. I got really, really, really good news, and I'm going to go work with somebody in a crisis situation. So maybe I should recognize that I'm super happy. I'm going to work with somebody who's super not, right? We want to self-monitor, right? We need to be able to self-monitor. And when we self-monitor and when we're good at it, which remember one of those columns on that video, the sheet thing, one of them is what's going on inside of you, while that's happening, that moment in the video. That is one of the things that hopefully will help you self-monitor, right? A lot of times, you will catch any problems that might arise in your professional work if you have the ability to self-monitor. Most people don't self-monitor. They don't. Which is, again, one of the reasons I try to build it into the practice, so that you're kind of already thinking when you're working with people, hey, what's going on with me? Hey, am I good? Am I at a good place right now to be helping with this person, or should I take a mental health day? What's going on with me? A lot of times, you guys, if you haven't already encountered this, you probably will be working with somebody professionally, and then all of a sudden, just, Bill's such a nice guy. He's so sweet, and he helps everybody out. And then one day you come in, and Bill just lets a client just have it. And everybody in the office hears it, and everybody goes, and no one talks to Bill that day. And everybody's like, what happened to Bill? A good chance what happened to Bill is that Bill has not had self-care in a long time, and he was not self-monitoring. If he had done some self-monitoring, he probably could have recognized that he was close to blowing up. But he wasn't. He was doing his thing, nose down, just get it done. And he was never stopping to come up and go, okay, how am I doing? Am I good? Am I at a place where I should be working with people right now? Do I need to take some time off? What's going on? But we have to do that. We have to. If we're going to work with the most vulnerable people, we have to hold ourselves to a high, high standard, right? Okay, accountability. This also goes with that high, high standard. I totally don't love accountability. I will be honest. I seek it continually in my life, but I would be lying if I said I liked it. I don't like it when people say I'm doing something wrong. When people say I'm doing something right, I'm like, okay, that's awesome. I love hearing that. But when somebody tells me, no, you need to do this or change this or just don't do this altogether, I don't like that. I think that's a pretty normal human reaction. However, I have faced the very sad truth that I tend towards entropy, right? I tend towards disorganization and chaos when I don't actively fight it, right? And one of the ways in which I actively fight, being lazy, just kind of phoning it in, just kind of, going through the motions and not really doing the very best that I can for my clients, one of the ways I fight that is to have people in my life who are going to keep me accountable. So this might be a consultant group that I have where I'll tell them, hey, I have a client and the client has a similar history to me, and so there might be, some countertransference that happens, and then every week when I meet with them in a consultant group, they go, okay, how's that client? Are you monitoring yourself for countertransference? How has it come out this week? And they're calling me on it, right? They're there to help me be awesome and professional. Or I have a supervisor, right? Who's there to give me feedback, who's there to really speak into my life in a way that helps me to be better, helps me fight complacency and laziness. A lot of things in this field get really bad because they hide. Like little dust mites, that hide under your bed. You think your room's really clean, and then you get down under the floor with your vacuum cleaner, and all of a sudden you see like puff balls, and you're like, oh man, now I see that it's really filthy. A lot of things in this field can hide because they go to a dark place, right? And they go to, a lot of times the little dark place is just, they don't tell anybody about it. It's in their office with only clients seeing it. Like, no one professionally is speaking into their life or knows what they do in a professional setting. They're not recording themselves or whatever else is considered the standard practice of where they are. They're not trying to get anybody to say, hey, see what I'm doing. Give me feedback, right? Look at what I'm doing. They're all just kind of like, I'm going to do this and be comfortable. And then a lot of times what happens is they just get worse and worse and worse and worse. Okay, professional development, this is another one, like going to conferences or things like that. One of the best things that I ever did when I was just starting in my career, did not have any money. And the place I worked for did not pay, was not willing to pay. But I sucked it up, and I was living on beans and rice for a month, or maybe a couple months, because there was a conference I really, really, really wanted to go to. And it was a very expensive conference. I feel like I can't afford it now. I don't even know how I swung it when I was just in the field. But that conference was very inspirational for me. It helped me out a lot. It helped me learn a lot about self-care. It was a great time to kind of step away from my clinical work and get refreshed and learn new tactics and new things and mingle with people who were in the same fields. I could hear their stories and learn about that. So professional development, a lot of times you can kind of look at it as, oh, it's something I have to do. But I would encourage you to look at it as another aspect of self-care. It could be. Right? Just like some people, they look at coming to class as like something I have to do, and then some people look at class as something I get to do. There are a lot of people in a lot of countries who do not get to go to school. The idea of getting to go, and if they even did, the idea of them getting to pick what they want to do, what they're interested in to go to a class, that's like heaven. So is it a have to or a get to? Because if it's a get to, you're probably going to enjoy it a lot more. Right? If it's a have to, not so much. And then supervision and consultation, I kind of talked about that earlier with accountability. And I would encourage you to start these as early as you possibly can, because the longer you wait, the more awkward it is to start. Right? The younger you are in the field, the more you can say, hey, would you be my supervisor? Or, hey, you want to have a consultant group? Or, hey, whatever. And it's just not very weird because you're new in the field, you're just starting everything. You wait till you're 10 years in the field, and all of a sudden it's like, why do you want to do that now? Right? And then it becomes a little bit awkward. So I would definitely encourage you to start that as early as you can. And then, this is the last thing. You really need to intellectually and emotionally agree that self-care needs to be prioritized. Because if you don't, what will happen is you don't do it. Like, sometimes people will, in their heads, they'll be like, okay, yeah, self-care is important. Sure, I recognize that. But they don't actually have the emotional buy-in to it. Right? They're not actually, usually it's because they're not actually monitoring themselves, so they don't actually have any emotional buy-in to self-care being important, so they don't do it. Right? Or maybe they really want to take time for self-care, so they have the emotional buy-in, but they don't really see it as important, so a lot of times the things that they'll do for self-care are not things that really actually rejuvenate them very much. And then something we'll talk about a little bit too, I'll just briefly touch on now, is the difference between self-care and coping skills. And this is something, I kid you not, this took me at least 2 years of professional work to learn the difference between. I did not learn this difference in grad school, and I don't know why I didn't learn this difference in grad school, because it's kind of an important difference. But coping skill is the thing that just lets you get by, right? Just helps you get through. Like watching Netflix at night, right? Just helping you get through the day. Coping skills are the things that actually rebuild you, right? Going on a long walk with your dogs, having tea with a friend you haven't seen in a long time, or whatever. The things that actually restore you and rejuvenate you. For a long time, I knew people that were burning out in the field, and I would kind of look and ask about their self-care habits, and they were doing a lot of self-care. They were watching a lot of TV, watching a lot of movies, doing, and then I was like, oh, that's never gonna help you avoid burnout. if that's all you do. Because those things are just coping skills that just helping you get through that day. That's all they're helping you do. None of them are going to help you actually rejuvenate. So recognize that the difference. Have some good go-to coping skills. Yes, awesome. Have those. You need them. Then also have some really, really, really good self-care activities. And know that they're different. Okay, we're not gonna do this. We will do this. We'll do the self-care activity one day. We'll do actually a couple self-care activities. Okay. Any comments, questions, thoughts?
I just think that last part you said is funny because that's exactly what I used to tell my ex.
Oh.
He was always on his phone constantly, and he just mentally was a wreck. I found out, but I would tell him all the time. I'd say, when you're sitting on your phone watching sports or watching, Netflix or whatever, you're not actually rejuvenating your mind and being present.
Exactly. That's awesome.
He'd argue with me constantly.
Yeah, he was wrong. Of course, you know that, right? That's why he's your ex.
Actually, I was relating to it in a kind of similar way because my mom works at a place where she's got a lot of, she calls them her friends, but she works with a lot of kids. And they come through a lot to go see, because she's kind of a receptionist, but she does a lot more than that at a clinic. And so she gets to know these kids, a lot of them with really bad situations, and it's really hard on her. Mm-hmm. She's had kids die and get taken from their family. She's experienced a lot.
Yeah.
And she's really bad at getting through it. She's got 3 days off, and those 3 days off, she's always in bed, and that's all she'll do. Mm-hmm. She'll just be on her phone, be in bed, and not talk to anybody. And I guess she hasn't figured out what works for her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is what that does is it distracts your mind from what's going on in your mind instead of actually
repairing it. Yeah, it's the difference between you have a broken leg, so you take narcotics. Sure, you don't feel it anymore, but you haven't taken care of the problem. Yeah, and there's a time and a place for taking narcotics when you've broken your leg, right? But that should be your treatment for the broken leg, Yeah, yeah, good examples. Anything else? Any other thoughts? Wait. Just did the opposite of what I meant to do. Oh, that's the last. Thank you for bearing with me. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to cover is, I call these the brutal basics. And I call them that because it's pretty self-explanatory. I feel like they're brutal, but they're very basic. So a lot of times students will be like, that's so simple. But sometimes it can be very, very, very hard to do. You might also find that maybe all of them, except for one, are very easy for you. Second nature, no problem, don't have to think about it. And then there'll be that one that you can just not get right to save your life. So that's why I call them brutal basics. They're very, very basic, but they can be brutal in how hard they can be to be consistently executed correctly. Okay. I need to change that. Okay. So a couple of places we're going to start. One, you want open-ended questions. Open-ended questions are questions that cannot be answered with yes and no. Why questions? You want to avoid questions that start with why, because why is a question that makes people feel defensive. Why is your pen turquoise? Why do you have a black purse? Why do you have glasses on the table? Why is your purse black and leather sitting on the table? Why are you wearing a hat? Right? All of those kind of immediately sounds like I'm getting on you. No, I'm not getting on you, right? But I said why, and so it kind of sounds like you have to defend yourself. Right? So avoid why questions. And then reflection statements. Reflection statements are when you repeat back to somebody. Reflection statements for the purposes of this class, I will say, they are defined differently in different places. For the purpose of this class, reflection statements are when somebody says something to you and you repeat back to them what seemed to be the crux of what they said using their words. So, for instance, I went to Disney World yesterday, and it was so much fun, and we had hot dogs, and I danced with Pluto, and it was just a great time. And I don't think that I've ever spent such great time with my granddad. He was always busy when I was growing up, but we just got to spend time with we just got to spend time with each other at Disney World the other day, and it was just wonderful. And then after that, we went on rides, and I almost threw up. It was great. And the thing you might reflect back would be, spend a lot of time with granddad, right? Because that, out of all the stuff that she said, that was the thing that was the most important of what she said, and so you might reflect it back. Now again, there's a million other things you could say after she was done saying that, right? But a reflection statement would be one of those things where you kind of comment back to her what she said. Does that make sense? That would be a reflection statement. We'll talk about reflection statements a lot more, so if that doesn't quite seem clear, don't worry, we'll talk about it a lot more. Okay, again, open-ended questions. So this is a typical closed-ended question, right? There's one place to go, and it's not going to get you very much. Okay, now, there is a time and a place for closed-ended questions, where you just need a yes and a no to a question. However, it's the human disposition to use closed-ended questions far more than we used open-ended questions. So for the purpose of this class, we're not using closed-ended questions. Or you want to use them extremely infrequently, right? Because again, there is a time and a place for them, certainly. But you all are probably experts already at closed-ended questions. So that's not a skill you probably need to work on at all. And this is a class to help you work on skills for paraprofessional counseling. So open-ended is what we're going to work on, right? You can tell that a question is going to be closed-ended, especially if it starts with a couple words. Think of a question that starts with do, that is not a yes or no question. The only way you can even come close is if you add it to other questions. And that's not actually starting that question with the word do. Right? So there are some words that you can use that you know it's going to be a closed-ended question because of how you started the question. Right? Could. Would. These are all questions that are yes or no questions, but we don't typically think of them that way. Right? So a closed-ended question is anything that could be answered with a yes or a no. And again, the column that you have in the reflections form, one of them is like a question you could ask. Don't have it be a closed-ended question that you write in that form, right? Practice your good open-ended questions. So on that form, have it be an open-ended question. We want to practice good open-ended questions that don't start with the word why, right? So after she told you that story about Disneyland with her grandfather, what is without dropping things, what is an open-ended question you could ask? I'm going to have you all think of one, but I'll give you time. But all of you are going to have to think of one. Okay.
How does it make you feel when you get quality time with your grandpa?
Okay. There you go. Cindy, got one for us? I promise this will get way easier. Angel?
Not yet.
Okay. Jason?
Is that your favorite memory of your grandfather, maybe?
No.
Oh, that is a closed-ended one.
But it's good because sometimes, right, we don't realize that the question we're asking is closed. Okay, let's just all, for the sake of simplicity, have your question start with how. Have your question start with the word how.
How did you feel when you found out that you were going on this trip?
Okay. Jason? I know you can do it.
how would spending even more time with your grandfather help you?
How do you remember your grandfather now?
Good. What you got? I know you can do one. You talk to somebody that just said, "Oh, I love spending time with my grandfather at Disneyland. It was great." Can you ask them? Okay. I want you to think about it because I know you can do it. I think right now you're just kind of like getting inside your own head, but I know you can do it. Right? Because what we want to do is we want to get in the habit of thinking about those things, right? How can I go about doing this, getting information without making them feel defensive, asking a why question, and without making it so that they don't really have many places they can go. I'm really thankful. One of the things I'm really thankful for is my training. The person who did my skills, they were a very tough person. But I was very, very, very thankful later on in life because we were not allowed to use open and or closing questions at all. And one of the great things about that is that when you work with teenagers, they will catch pretty much every closing question you throw at them. They'll go, yeah, no, uh-huh. Yeah, and that's a good signal that you asked a close-ended question, right? But if you are trained, and so you know how to only use open-ended, you're on top of it, you're going to throw those teenagers, those, reclusive, or not really reclusive, but like reluctant teenagers, you're going to throw them for a loop. Because now every question that you're asking, they can't just say yes or no to. Right? They have to think about it a little bit more. Right? And again, it can be very tricky, and there will definitely be times I am anticipating in y'all's videos that you will your client will say something and you'll go while you're thinking about that is fine. That is totally fine, right? That is totally fine because what you're doing is you're training your brain to do new things. The way in which you would have interacted with that person your entire life up to now, you're changing. Yeah, that's going to take some work for your brain to change that. Okay, and then this is the why, right? It kind of feels accusatory, and then I don't know why, I just always like this picture. I feel like this is a nice reflection statement, right? He's just reflecting everything around him. Okay, so these are three simple yet big things that some of you might spend the entire semester working on. And again, don't feel bad about that. Okay, these are some simple starting points too. Again, simple doesn't mean easy, right? Remember the marathon, right? The marathon's really easy. You just keep one foot going in front of another. But it's not easy because you have to do it for 26.2 miles, right? So simple and easy are not the same thing. Okay, so one is staying on topic. You want to stay on. Did I have it? Yeah. Okay, I'll picture for it. You want to stay on the topic that you started on. What this will help you do. A lot of times we as humans don't do this. We kind of. When we were talking in a normal conversation, we kind of flit around, like, little rabbit trails all the time. And that's generally fine in normal conversation. But it doesn't usually help you get a whole bunch of depth. And when you're working with somebody, you need to be good at getting depth into what they're talking about. Right? And that means you'll stay on topic. You'll stay on the same topic. Now, it doesn't ever mean you could never talk about anything else. But it means when you talk about something else, it's for the purpose of coming back to your original point. Now, if the videos you guys were doing were hours long, there'd be a lot more room for being able to leave topics. The videos y'all doing are for 7 to 10 minutes. So yeah, you really need to learn how to be on the same topic for 7 to 10 minutes. That'll serve you well.
Is that each person?
Yes.
I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, each person, each video. We do not want to indulge in personal curiosity. Is that? I have the same kind of go. I've just never seen anybody else eat it before. I just feel weird. We don't want to indulge in personal curiosity. Our clients are not there to entertain us. All right? Any questions that we ask of them, we want to be because we're trying to help them and understand them better. Not because we want to be like entertained or, we have morbid curiosity about their pain or something, right? Our questions cannot be motivated by like our own personal interests. So here's an example of this. So I was one time working with somebody, and we were working on we were just working on a very little something. We were kind of just doing a little demo thing, and he was talking to me about feeling comfortable in the community, because he did feel comfortable in the community. It was kind of a positive thing he was talking about. And at one point in time, he brought up that one of the reasons he feels comfortable in the community is because his wife is from the community, and his wife has really strong bonds with the community. And so then he proceeded to say that his wife had been in an accident when she was younger with 4 of her other siblings, and all of her siblings had drowned, and she was the only one who had lived. And it was, and he started to describe the accident, that it kind of shook the little town that they lived in. And it was actually on the road to where we were sitting and talking and having this conversation. So it was like less than a mile from where we were. Now, my own personal curiosity, I wanted to know a lot more. Like, how old was she? How old were the siblings? Like, what was the weather? I mean, I had a lot. I was just personally curious about a lot of stuff. Like, who was driving? Were the parents involved? Like, what was the aftermath? Did the parents stay together? I was all of a sudden interested in all this other stuff. It was completely irrelevant to what he was talking about. Right? What he was talking about was why he feels comfortable in the community. Now, if he had brought up the accident and made any indication that he wanted to explore and talk about the accident more, that's fine. We could have done that. He hadn't. He was talking about why he felt comfortable in the community. That was our topic. So if I had gotten off and started asking other questions, I probably could have told myself it's because I wanted to understand his perspective more. But in reality, it was to indulge my own personal curiosity. Right? We need to be able to recognize that difference. We need to have that insight of what's going on in us. This is another reason that people who have been through trauma, a lot of times they get re-traumatized by their therapist, because their therapist wants to know the gory details of what happened to them. And sometimes it helps to talk about stuff. Sometimes it doesn't, but the client is the one who should decide what they want to talk about. In most cases, there's very, very, very few like forensic kind of self-harm, self-preservation reasons, exceptions to that. But it should never be because of the counselor's curiosity. That should never be the reason that the person is like talking about their trauma again. It should be because either they need to or there's some safety issue involved in why they need to. It should never be because the counselor wants to know. Right? So we need to be able to understand, when am I just interested, like I'm just personally curious, and when do I actually think this is related to the topic, this will help me understand your perspective better, and we need to be willing to be honest with ourselves. Right? Does that make sense? Yeah? Yeah, so there, yeah. Anybody know why I chose this picture?
Curiosity killed the cat.
There you go. There you go. He's so interested in what's in there, but something's going to get broken or something bad's going to happen. Okay. You also always want to open and close whenever you are working with somebody. Again, I know that seems so basic. Now, one of the reasons I think this is especially important for paraprofessional counselors is when you're a professional counselor, usually your time together will start when they come into your office, or you go to get them and your time together will end when they leave your office, or you drop them off the waiting room. And so it's really very natural to do it open and close. It's kind of just part of your normal routine interacting with other humans, right? However, when you're a paraprofessional counselor, your 5 minutes talking to somebody might be when they're sitting on the swing at recess. It might be when they're waiting next to the elevator to go leave, and you have an unknown 2 minutes to talk to them. It might be in very different community settings for very different amounts of time, and you might not even know how long the amount of time is, right? But it's still always important to do some kind of open and close. Even if that open is as simple as, hey, how are you? And that close is as simple as, nice to talk to you, bye, or see you next time, or just something that you're showing. I'm recognizing our time is beginning, I'm recognizing our time is ending. Every once in a while, what you'll see is you'll have a paraprofessional counselor like talking to somebody. Maybe they're waiting. The client is waiting for another appointment, and so the paraprofessional counselor is maybe wrapping up something that they're doing together. They're talking about something, and then the person will call them. They'll be called in for their appointment that they're waiting for, and then the person will just get up and leave. Even if that person is in a rush and is getting up, the paraprofessional counselor needs to call out, bye, nice talking to you, see you next time, something, something to show that they're marking that time is ending. Okay? And you especially need to do that for your videos. Again, it doesn't necessarily have to be big and drawn out, but something to mark that you're beginning the time and you're ending the time. And that goes to like you setting up the space for your clients and a whole bunch of other things. Has anybody ever had a conversation with anybody and the person as they were having a conversation just like went away or drifted away or started talking to somebody else? Have you ever had that experience? Did it leave you feeling good? Yeah, pretty universally, no. We don't like that. So you want to always make sure you're very clear about the close. Again, even if it's as simple as bye. Even if it's as simple as, I'm looking forward to talking to you next time. Right? It doesn't have to be anything big and serious. What?
I work at Holiday overnights,
Oh, yeah?
so, I do a lot of that, open and close in like little amounts of time.
Yeah, there you go. Then you're going to be the pro. You're going to be the pro in the class.
Yeah, I know.
Well, you already have a lot of practice. You have way more practice than the rest of us. Okay. And then it is extremely, extremely important that you're genuine. Okay, so being genuine does not mean that you say everything on your mind. Because we're not talking about being 5-year-olds. Right? You know, a 5-year-old walks into the room and they're like, my mama's fatter than she was last night because she had a whole pie. Right? A 5-year-old can get away with saying something like that, right? But you can't get away with that when you're 15, right? Because you should start to have learned the difference between saying everything on your mind and like saying what you should say. So don't say everything that's on your mind, absolutely. But the things that you say should be genuine reflections of who you are, right? You want to be genuine. This is another reason that, like, when you're filming your videos, I don't even want you to do something like, well, I look forward to seeing you next week. Or don't start the video, what's brought you in today? Because the thing that brought them in today was doing an assignment for a class, right? Right? They didn't actually come in to talk to you about their problem, like you're going to help them. They came in to do an assignment for class. So we want to be genuine all the way through our practice. Right? Does that make sense? Yeah, be genuine. I was going to say something else, but I'll have to come back to it later. And then also we want to be present, and that means that you're really there. You're just really there. You're not thinking about your grocery list. You're not thinking about what you need to do after you're done talking to this person. You're not thinking about any of that. You are totally present and with them and engaged with them. I did an exercise one time with some adults that worked at a therapeutic residential school that I was helping kind of train them in some different things that they could do with some of the kids. And part of what I would do is I would have them do an activity. And again, I'm very much on like when you practice be real and be present. So when they would practice the activity, they were the client. They were in the client role practicing the activity, and I was in the counselor role. And I'd had them, I told them, work with real work. We don't have to be fake. And afterwards, we did a review, and one of the things that I was most surprised by the feedback was, wow, you were so present. I could so feel you paying attention to me. I'm not sure anybody in my life has ever paid attention to me as much as you were paying attention to me while we were doing this. And you could really tell that it was an extremely positive experience for her. Because a lot of times, especially in our iPhone-laden world, we are used to getting a fraction of people's attention. Just a fraction. And so whenever we truly get somebody's undivided attention, we're very aware of it. Sometimes, especially if you're a millennial or younger, it might even freak you out a little bit. You're like, oh, I don't know what to do with all this attention. I feel weird. Why don't you want to pay attention to something else? Right? We don't even really, know how to cope with it. And that's, of course, unfortunate. And being present and somebody giving you attention is one of the ways in which humans fundamentally know that they are valuable. So it is extremely important that we do it. I could tell you a whole bunch of stories with kids, but I don't, because we don't have all that much time left. But it is very important to just recognize the power of your presence. And again, you're not thinking about your grocery list. You're not thinking about what you need to do afterwards. You're not thinking about blah, 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 blah. You're there. You're there with the person that you're working with right then. You're not focused on anything else but them. And they will pick up on it almost always unconsciously. Right? People who don't have people who pay attention to them, who truly, truly pay attention to them, they grow up, and the word that we have for how they feel is worthless. And our expression is to pay attention, right? Pay and worth. So, and it's your attention that gives people a lot of their self-conceived beliefs about their worth. So remember that. You might be the only person in that child, that adult, that teenagers, whoever, elderly person, whoever you're working with, you might be the only person who is truly, truly going to sit down and totally be present with them and totally be focused on them and paying attention to them. Don't dismiss that as not important. That sometimes could be the make it or break it thing for their day, for their week, for their month, for their life. Right? So don't think that just because it's not you doing anything, that it's not you doing something very important. Right? I can't say that enough, but I think this is one of those things that we usually pick up on it subconsciously. And that's another reason why it's so important too. Because whenever you pick up on something subconsciously, it is extremely hard to ever change that belief. And the reason is because it's not a conscious belief. It was formed subconsciously. And it's very hard to address things that were formed subconsciously. This is the reason people always say, you should have your best first impression, right? You want to put your best foot forward. It's because that is the thing that forms an impression of who you are to that person. But it's a subconscious impression. So you can't direct, like you show up the first time you meet them and you kind of look like a slob. And so their impression of you is this is kind of a person who doesn't really care how they present themselves, or they're not really working hard, or looking to be on top of stuff. They're not a very professional person. That's kind of the subconscious opinion they formed of you. You cannot undo that subconscious opinion by then being super professional looking for the next year. Because it's a subconscious opinion that will not get changed unless it becomes conscious. Does that make sense? So they'll have to be the kind of person that is willing to say, I kind of have this image of her as not being very professional, but it doesn't really match with reality because she's always been really professional. I don't know why I have that belief, but it's wrong. I got to change it. People don't usually do that. Most people are not mature enough or conscious enough or have enough personal insight to do that. That's why your first impression is really important. So the same is really true with present. If your clients can tell that you're truly present and truly paying attention, they'll pick up on it subconsciously. Which also means if you're not, they will pick up on that subconsciously too. And it'll be very, very hard to ever make them feel like you're really there and you really care. Because, you're showing them that you don't. Okay, so do all these make sense? Okay. We're going to talk a little bit. I know, I made this PowerPoint like a long time ago when I was really having fun with all those animations. And every time I use it again, I'm always like, I need to go in and take them out, but I never do. So they always kind of annoy me every time. Anyway, nonverbals and paraverbals. Anybody want to guess about what the difference is between nonverbals? Or maybe you know the difference between nonverbals and paraverbals? You look like you want to. You don't have to. You just look like you had something to say.
I mean, what you say verbally and non-verbally maybe? Or not verbally and...
You're right. It is what you say, non-verbally and paraverbally. You're totally right. Good guess.
Is a paraverbal like a noise?
Yeah, it's something that surrounds speech. Yeah. Yes. So a nonverbal would be like facial expression, right? Because there are no words, no verbal involved in a facial expression. Speaks volumes, doesn't it? Does she look like a sophisticated, interesting, intelligent individual right now? No, she doesn't. Doesn't mean she's not, right? Doesn't mean she's not. But this facial expression is not saying that. That's not what it's telling us. Body language. We all know this one, right? If you just walked into a waiting room and pretend these weren't like 4 creepy people who all look like each other, you saw 4 people. Which of them would you immediately think was probably going to be the best candidate? Yeah, right? Because she's signaling alert, present, engaged. Okay, tones of voice, volume, emphasis, and speed are all paraverbals. They're all things that surround your speech. Okay, so tone of voice, right? You can say things high pitch, you can say things low, you can say things deep, right? They tell us things. If you're squealing when you're talking, that might give us different information than if you're talking like this a lot, right? Volume, are you yelling it? Are you whispering it? Or talking in an inside voice, as my kindergarten teacher used to say? Emphasis, what word or words are being emphasized? And we all know this, right? We all pick up on this one and be like, that dress is so cool, versus that dress is so cool. Right? That dress is so cool. Right? I mean, how we change our emphasis, how we change our tones, how we change our volume really changes what we get from the same words. Right? And then speed, of course. Are they talking a mile a minute? I talk very quickly. I blame my siblings for it. I was the youngest, so I always had to talk very quickly if I wanted to be able to say anything at all. But speed can mean different things, right? Speed can mean anxiety. Speed can mean they're on drugs. Right? Speed could mean there's some physical condition. Speed could mean they're really just want to get done talking to you to move on to like McDonald's or whatever they got next on their list, right? Speed can mean different things. It will typically be not the words you say, but how you say them that make people annoyed by you. Resting face. For some of you, this will be the beast of the semester. For some of you, you're awesome at this already. I can kind of like look around and kind of guess who's going to struggle with this and who's not going to. But resting face. We all have resting faces. We all have resting faces. It's what happens to our face when there's no energy in our face. And so we all have them, right? All of us. Now, does everybody here have a cell phone? Okay, pull out your cell phone, pretty please. And if you can do this. So have your cell phone and have it so that the screen is not facing you. So have the camera but be looking away so you're not actually seeing what comes up. And I want you to try to get your face, take a picture of yourself when there's no energy in your face. It's going to be hard.
I'll find my car.
Okay, you can use mine. I don't really know how to use this meeting very well. Okay, so and it might take you a couple shots because you kind of start smiling and stuff. That's totally normal. But just try to take all the energy out of your face and just take a picture of it. It's very hard to do. I'll give you plenty of time to do it.
Find the button.
Okay, well, based on y'all's facial expressions that I currently see, I think most of y'all have done this. Okay, so when you look at your resting face picture, what does it look like? Like if you saw somebody with that facial expression, what would you guess they think or feel? What would you guess is going on inside of them? Nothing? Like they're like bored or?
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, mine doesn't look mad or sad, but it doesn't look happy. It doesn't look like it.
Yeah, not very interested. Yeah. But yeah, I agree with you. Not mad or sad, just what? What about you?
Uninterested.
Uninterested? Most people say mad, but I'm interested. None of you guys have said that. What do you think?
I think I look quizzical.
Quizzical? Okay. Nice. Okay, so typically these are not the faces that we want our clients to be seeing, right? And the interesting thing about a resting face is that you probably almost never ever see a resting face. Because when you look in a mirror, you automatically change your face. You don't even think about it. It's not conscious. You automatically. Has anybody ever found a picture of them like at a party and they didn't realize they were being photographed? Like, oh my gosh, I look horrible, right? Has anybody ever done that? No, guys never do that. Girls, I'm sure all the girls have probably done that. Because we probably saw a picture of us in our resting face, and all of a sudden we were horrified. We're like, no, because we don't usually see our resting face, because it's not ever what we have on our face when we look in a mirror. It's just not what we do. I mean, it's not something we have conscious control over. And the thing is, our face it's our sign. It is our sign to our clients. So we always need to make sure that our face, our sign is saying, I'm interested, I'm here, right? I'm engaged. And that means that you need to be aware of what your resting face is, and you need to be aware of how to combat it. You need to be aware of what you need to do in order